And it doesn't feel like September should already be over, but hey, here we are. Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm going to be doing my wrap up for the month of September, which seemed to go by quickly. And I feel like I don't have like a huge number of books, but some longer things that took a little bit to get through. And so I feel like that was kind of part of it. But I was doing for the month of September, specifically things that I had had a really long time that I still hadn't gotten to that I really wanted to get to. And that was kind of the theme that I was following. We went from there. First up, we had Solari by Michael Johnston, which was a DNF. This one, I had the first two books, and I picked them up because it sounded interesting. It's supposed to be like Egyptian themed, but something about it just didn't really work well for me. I was not pulled in, and then just kind of looking at reviews, which, the thing you should probably do before, it sounded like it just wasn't going to end up working for me. So that one ended up being a DNF, moving on from there. But then we, for the most part, had better results for the most part for the rest of the month. So first up, we had Duskfall, and this was from a patron poll. I had between 4 different options, and Duskfall won. It later ended up, another vote came in, which made it a tie, so we'll talk about that book. So then I picked up Duskfall. This is the first book in the Chaos Queen Quintet by Christopher Husberg, and was kind of a fun one. It has some sword and sorcery elements. It's also like Jason Bourne, but fantasy. And it was one that I was a little bit lukewarm on. I was enjoying it, although I had some issues, but the ending was really interesting. So I will be continuing to see where it comes, where the series goes from here. I do have a full review talking about that and most everything else I'm going to talk about here as well, if you want to know more. But it was kind of just, a little bit crazy with those elements, some interesting stuff with the characters, some interesting magic, and just wild, a lot of action, and especially the ending. So very, very curious there. Then the one that took me a lot longer than I planned for it to is the Witchwood Crown by Tad Williams, which, to be fair, is a chonker. And I mean, it's a long book, but also the text is fairly small in this, which shows you. So I was doing physical ebook and audio for this to get through somewhat quickly. It took me a good chunk of the month to get through this, but I loved this. I had a really, really great time with the Witchwood Crown. It's the first book in the Last King of Austin Ard series, which is the follow-up to Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, and I really enjoyed it. I did do a full review for this one, but for me, it really hit the notes of what you want with a follow-up series, where it still has that feel, but things have changed. The characters have matured. The ones that are returning, we're still seeing some things and some that remind us of the first. We have callback characters and returning characters, big and small, but things have moved forward, and it feels different, yet I still really feel like we're in that world. I'm very excited. I have just barely started the second book at this point as of filming this, and I'm really excited to continue. Then we jumped into another one that I had multiple books of that I had a long time, which is The Traitor God by Cameron Johnston. And this is another one that apparently is supposed to sword and sorcery elements. This one I ended up DNFing at about the halfway point. And it's one I still did a video about it because this actually screams to me this should be popular from a lot of what I was reading. It's well written, and it had some elements that for me just felt a little bit too familiar, but also is doing kind of a noir fantasy thing, which I feel like a lot of people would like, because I know some like the gangster stuff has been really popular. So I feel like noir style, which it really felt that way, characters investigating the death of his friend, including, going to the lady of the night to ask for her help, or the madam, and then going to like a gambling den, and that kind of thing. It's just like it had that feel while also setting up a lot with the magic, and so there were a lot of elements going on. And it's just, for me, I wasn't super pulled in. I could tell that I wasn't going to be a huge fan, and I wasn't going to continue, even though it was very subjective. So still, I think, worth checking out. I did do a review for it. But it just didn't end up quite working out for me. Then we're getting to the things that, that was the book that also then ended up tying Duskfall in the poll, for the record, for the patron pick. And so that's why I ended up picking that one up too, even though they were both originally in the same poll. Then we're getting the things that I've really, really been needing to get to, that I've been putting off for literal years, especially this is The Wounded Land by Stephen R. Donaldson. It's the first book in the second Chronicles of Thomas Covenant the Unbeliever, and I've been meaning to get to this literally since I finished the first trilogy, which was literally years ago, probably nearly 3 years ago at this point. And I don't know why I waited so long, but man, am I glad I finally picked this up, because I really, really enjoyed The Wounded Land. And as of recording this, I've actually finished the second book too, and I'm probably going to be doing the third book here really soon, because I really enjoyed this, and it wasn't, it's something that I'll spoiler. Book 2 is even better. But it's another really great example of a follow-up series where we have, in some ways, I can't really say too much without spoilers for some of it, but in some ways it has the same feel, but we're doing some things different. The characters have changed. We have a new character and a lot of new characters brought in, and just what it's accomplishing is Donaldson's, again, seems like he's going to knock it out of the park for me. I did do a review of that as well, where it's kind of borderline because it's sort of spoilery for the first trilogy if you've not read it, but it also takes place way after the first trilogy, so it's, I don't know, use your judgment if you want to find out more. But I did also do a video talking about the first trilogy as well, if you're interested in finding out more there as well. And then we get into, which I'm actually still reading at this point, The Darkness That Comes Before by R. Scott Baker, which is also something that I've been meaning to get to for a long time. For a while, I didn't have copies, or then I ended up getting a copy of the first book, and I have different copies now. I have copies of a good chunk of the series, the whole first trilogy, and I think at least one or two of the others after it. And I've been needing to get to this. It's one of those things, it's been on my radar for literally years. I know a lot of people have read it. I've heard a lot of things about it, and it's just one I really needed to get to and try and find out how I'm going to feel. And it's one of those books that I'm still not entirely sure how I feel about, but it's very engaging. The prose is really good and has worked really well for me and just kind of pulled me in. The way that it's written is just enjoyable. But I am, and a good chunk of this was in October for the record, but as of filming this, I'm a little more than halfway through, and I still feel like I'm just only starting to kind of figure some things out. And it sounds like that's a big thing with this series, is you really are figuring out things as you go along. But I'm in it for the ride. I'm really interested to see where this goes. Things are starting to get a little bit crazy. It wasn't an immediate start because the prologue was phenomenal. Chapter 1 I wasn't a big fan of, but then I kind of got into the style and where it was going, and said, yeah, having a good time, but we'll have to wait probably for next month to figure out. I'm sure I'll have a review up before then, but we'll see kind of where I end up. But that one I was still going into the month of October before starting the October reads, which we'll talk about later. I did do an October TBR if you're curious to see what I'm going to be reading, but that's really it for the month of September. So let me know, what did you read in the month of September? Always love hearing from you, as well as any of your thoughts on the books that I talked about here. Pretty diverse group. I went a bit darker for September than I realized I was going, I guess, because almost all of these were dark fantasy of some sort, or grimdark or whatever. And so it was an interesting month. So maybe it's a good time to kind of mix things up. But at the same time, I just jumped right back in for more with a lot of these. So I feel like it was really successful as far as getting to things that I really wanted to get to, because I've already started the sequels to 2 books I started here. I'm still reading one, and I'm just, it worked out pretty well for me. But anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Make sure to give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Check the links in the description, as always, for the Patreon if you want to support what I do, as well as the Wizardly Enclave Discord if you want to chat books, whether any of these books, other books, really anything at all. It's a lot of fun, and we'd love to have you. And of course, if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe.